I am Chloe, 32 years old, and 3 hours ago I buried my father. My older sister handed me an expensive bottle of vodka at the repast, calling it a peace offering to heal our divided family. When I got home, I set it on the counter untouched, but my fiancé poured himself a single glass. 40 minutes later, he was convulsing on our hardwood floor, fighting for his life. When I video called my sister from the back of the speeding ambulance and told her who actually drank her gift, the smug smile melted off her face right before she screamed for her husband. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to survive a family that wanted to see you fail. Red and blue ambulance lights slash across the walls of my living room, painting the space in frantic bursts of color. The sound of sirens wailing cuts through the night air, drowning out everything else. On the hardwood floor, my fiancé Malik is thrashing violently. His muscles are locked tight, his back arched at an unnatural angle, and thick white foam gathers at the corners of his mouth. Two paramedics are kneeling beside him, shouting medical jargon I can barely process. They are moving with a terrifying urgency, struggling to hold his broad shoulders down while trying to clear his airway. Just 40 minutes prior, we had walked through our front door exhausted from my father Calvin's funeral. Malik had loosened his tie and poured a single glass of the artisanal vodka my older sister Jasmine had shoved into my hands at the repast. She had smiled that perfect camera-ready smile of hers and called it an olive branch. Now the glass lies shattered on the floor next to Malik, and the harsh chemical smell of the spilled liquid mixes with the metallic scent of panic in the room. The paramedics strap Malik to a gurney, shouting that his heart rate is dropping dangerously fast. I grab my purse and climb into the back of the ambulance, my hands shaking so violently I can barely buckle the seatbelt. The doors slam shut, and the vehicle lurches forward, throwing me back against the cold metal wall. I look down at Malik. His rich dark skin has turned an ashen gray, and the monitors hooked up to his chest beep with a frantic, irregular rhythm. The paramedic working over him pushes a syringe of medication into his IV line, but Malik's body continues to seize. My mind races back to the repast at the hotel. Jasmine looking flawless in her designer morning dress, making a grand show of pulling me aside in front of our extended family. She had handed me the bottle wrapped in black velvet, loudly declaring that it was time we put our differences aside to honor our father's legacy. I sit in the vibrating ambulance and pull my phone from my pocket. My thumb hovers over Jasmine's contact name. A dark suspicion takes root in my chest, wrapping around my heart like a vice. I press the video call button. It rings 3 times before the screen connects. Jasmine fills the frame, lounging on the white leather sofa in her suburban McMansion. She is holding a glass of red wine, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup untouched by grief. She answers with a smug, wine-drunk smile, clearly expecting to see me weeping over our dead father seeking her comfort. "Chloe," she says, her tone dripping with fake sympathy, "I thought you would be asleep by now. Are you crying again?" I do not cry. I do not raise my voice. I simply stare into the camera, my face a mask of absolute stillness. The sirens wail loudly in the background of my audio, and Jasmine frowns slightly, trying to identify the noise. "Are you in a car?" she asks, her brow furrowing. I turn my phone around, flipping the camera away from my face and pointing it directly at Malik. The screen shows him strapped to the gurney and oxygen masks secured over his face, while a paramedic performs aggressive chest compressions. "I let Malik drink the vodka you gave me," I say, my voice dead calm, cutting straight through the chaos of the ambulance. The change in Jasmine is instantaneous and absolute. The smug smile vanishes. All color drains from her face, leaving her looking hollow and terrified. Her wine glass slips from her manicured fingers, shattering against her expensive coffee table. Red wine spills everywhere, looking like blood, but she does not even look down. Her eyes are wide, fixed on the screen, watching Malik fight for his life. She opens her mouth to speak, but no words come out. Her breathing turns rapid and shallow. Then she drops her phone. The camera angle tumbles wildly before landing face up on her ceiling. Before the screen cracks, I hear her scream. It is not a cry of concern for Malik. It is a shriek of pure, unadulterated terror. "Connor!" She screams for her white real estate developer husband, her voice cracking with panic. "Connor, get in here right now." The camera feed shakes as someone snatches the phone from the floor. It is my mother, Brenda. She fills the screen, her expression twisted into a scowl of deep annoyance rather than worry. Brenda is wearing her funeral diamonds, the ones she bought just days after my father passed. Instead of asking if Malik is alive or what hospital we are heading to, she immediately goes on the offensive. "Chloe, stop being so dramatic," Brenda snaps, adjusting her pearl earrings as she glares into the camera. "Malik probably just drank too much because you stress him out. You have always been a chaotic mess, making everything about yourself. You have never done anything right since you threw away your tuition at Howard University to go chop onions in a kitchen." Her words seamlessly establish my lifelong role in this family as the designated scapegoat. I am 32 years old, an executive chef and owner of an elite catering firm called Soul and Spice. I built a thriving business from scratch, but to Brenda, I will always be the failure who rejected a corporate path to work in food service. She continues her rant telling me that Jasmine was just trying to be a good big sister and that my inability to handle my relationships is not their problem. I look at Brenda's face on the screen, watching her protect Jasmine without hesitation, exactly as she has done my entire life. She does not care that my fiancé is dying, she only cares that I am interrupting their evening. I press the end call button, cutting off her voice. The ambulance takes a sharp turn, throwing me sideways as we pull into the emergency room bay. The back doors fly open and a team of trauma nurses rushes out to meet us. They pull Malik's gurney from the ambulance and sprint toward the double doors, shouting vital signs and medical codes I do not understand. I run after them, my heels clicking frantically against the concrete. The emergency room is a blur of bright fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic. They push Malik into a trauma bay, and a nurse stops me at the door, telling me I have to wait outside. I stand in the hallway watching through the glass as doctors swarm around him, cutting away his shirt and attaching more monitors to his chest. The flatline alarm sounds for 2 agonizing seconds before they hit him with a defibrillator. I press my hands against the glass, my breath fogging the pain. I do not cry. I cannot afford to cry. If I cry, they win. 2 hours pass in the sterile waiting room. I sit in a hard plastic chair, my posture perfectly straight, staring at the clock on the wall. The hospital hums around me with the quiet, desperate energy of the middle of the night. Every time the double doors swing open, my heart jumps into my throat. Finally, a tall man in green scrubs walks into the waiting area. His name badge identifies him as Dr. Evans, the attending physician. His face is grim and his shoulders carry the weight of someone about to deliver devastating news. He walks over to me and asks if I am Chloe Sterling. I nod, standing up to meet him. I expect him to tell me about alcohol poisoning. I expect him to say Malik had a bad reaction to the liquor, or that his liver could not process it. But Dr. Evans is not holding a standard alcohol poisoning chart. He holds a detailed toxicology screen in his hand, and he does not look at it. He looks directly into my eyes. "Ms. Sterling," Dr. Evans says, keeping his voice low so the other people in the waiting room cannot hear. "We managed to stabilize his heart rate, but he is in critical condition. We had to put him into a medically induced coma to protect his brain function from the violent seizures. He will be transferred to the intensive care unit shortly." I take a slow breath, trying to process the words medically induced coma. "When can he wake up?" I ask. "Will he be okay?" Dr. Evans sighs and glances down at the paperwork in his hand before looking back at me. "That is the complication, Ms. Sterling. Your fiancé did not just drink alcohol tonight. The toxicology report came back with something highly unusual. He ingested a massive, near-lethal dose of a synthetic muscle relaxant. It is a powerful chemical compound, usually reserved for heavy veterinary tranquilization or highly restricted medical procedures. It causes immediate respiratory failure and severe neuromuscular paralysis." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. A synthetic muscle relaxant. It was not a bad batch of liquor. It was poison. This was not an accident. Dr. Evans continues, his tone shifting from medical professional to deeply concerned citizen. The concentration in his bloodstream indicates this substance was intentionally mixed into whatever he consumed. Given the severity of the toxicity and the fact that it nearly stopped his heart within minutes, we have a mandatory protocol to follow. We are contacting the police. They are on their way to take your statement. I stand completely still, absorbing the reality of what just happened. The olive branch, the expensive bottle wrapped in black velvet, Jasmine handing it to me with that tight, calculated smile, telling me she wanted us to heal. She did not know Malik would drink it. Malik was supposed to be driving my father's vintage car back to the estate tonight. I was supposed to be the one drinking at home alone to mourn my father. The poisoned vodka was an assassination attempt aimed directly at me. Dr. Evans asks if I need a glass of water or if I would like him to call a chaplain. I shake my head. No thank you, Dr. Evans, I say, my voice dropping an octave, steadying into a calm rhythm that surprises even me. I do not need a chaplain. Please send the police detectives to me as soon as they arrive. I have a lot to tell them. He nods, handing me a copy of the toxicology report for my personal records before walking back through the double doors. I look down at the medical paper in my hand, the stark black text detailing the lethal chemicals surging through Malik's veins. I fold the paper carefully and place it inside my designer purse, snapping the gold clasp shut. My father, Calvin Sterling, built a multi-million-dollar logistics empire from the ground up. He taught me that when a competitor tries to eliminate you, you do not panic and you do not cry. You gather your assets, you secure your leverage, and you destroy their foundation so completely they can never rebuild. Jasmine thought she was handing me a death sentence. She thought she could remove the family scapegoat and claim my father's throne without getting her hands dirty. She missed her target. And now she has no idea that the sister she spent a lifetime underestimating is about to become her worst nightmare. I sit back down in the hard plastic chair, crossing my legs and waiting for the authorities to arrive. The war has just begun, and I am going to burn her perfect world to the ground. I stare at the clipboard resting heavily on my knees. The stark white paper glares back at me under the harsh fluorescent hospital lights. Connor shifts his weight next to me, his expensive cologne completely failing to mask the sour smell of his nervous sweat. He produces a silver pen from his tailored jacket pocket and holds it out to me with a tight, encouraging smile. Jasmine stands just behind him, her arms crossed tight over her chest, her eyes darting frantically between the emergency room doors and the pen in Connor's hand. Brenda hovers nearby, adjusting her designer's scarf, pretending to look at a hospital brochure while watching me like a hawk circling prey. They expect me to be a weeping mess. They expect the grieving daughter and terrified fiancé to blindly sign whatever is put in front of her, just to make the administrative headache go away. That is the standard play here. Catch the target at their absolute weakest moment when their father is resting in a morgue and their partner is hooked up to life support machines. Exploit the trauma to bypass the defenses. I do not take the pen. I do not shed a single tear. Instead, I pick up the clipboard. I ignore the bold, friendly header that reads Temporary Family Proxy Agreement. My eyes drop straight to the dense paragraphs of fine print at the bottom of the page. Years of reviewing predatory vendor contracts, auditing supply chains, and negotiating commercial leases for my catering business have trained me to spot a trap from a mile away. The legal jargon is thick, but the intent is crystal clear. This is not a temporary proxy. This is a full, irrevocable relinquishment of my rights as the primary executor of Calvin Sterling's estate. It includes a highly specific clause transferring all voting rights, financial authority, and controlling shares of Sterling Freight directly to Jasmine. I read further, my finger tracing the microscopic text. There is also a liability waiver absolving the signees of any responsibility regarding my health or financial well-being. It includes stipulations about establishing a medical proxy if I am deemed legally incapacitated. The wording is far too specific to have been drafted tonight. This document was prepared days ago. They were waiting for the right moment to strike. If I sign this, I am handing over a logistics empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars to a man who cannot even keep his real estate developments out of foreclosure, and a sister who views me as an obstacle to her inheritance. But it is the medical proxy clause that makes my blood run freezing cold. I look at the paper, then I look up at Jasmine. I look at her bloodshot eyes. I remember the sheer panic that washed over her face on the video call when she saw Malik on the stretcher instead of me. I think about the synthetic muscle relaxant surging through his veins. It was not just spite, it was a calculated hit. If I drank that vodka as intended, I would be the one in a coma right now. Or dead. And if I survived but was found with a lethal dose of a restricted chemical in my system, Connor and Jasmine could easily have me committed to a psychiatric ward. They would spin a tragic narrative about a daughter attempting suicide from the overwhelming grief of losing her father. With my signature on this paper and a fabricated mental health crisis, they would have total, uncontested control of the Sterling Empire. I slowly lower the clipboard. The icy calm that settled over me in the back of the ambulance hardens into an unbreakable steel. I look Connor dead in the eye. My voice is low, but it slices through the hum of the hospital waiting room. You did not come here to comfort me, Connor. He blinks his fake, sympathetic smile, faltering for a fraction of a second before he forces it back into place. Chloe, we are just trying to help. You are in no state to deal with estate lawyers and shipping manifests right now. You need to focus on Malik. Let family carry the burden for you. Just sign the paperwork so we can get to work protecting your father's legacy. I drop the clipboard onto the empty plastic chair next to me. The sharp clack echoes down the quiet hallway, causing a passing nurse to turn her head. You did not come here to help me. You came here to steal my father's company before his body is even cold. Brenda gasps loudly, pressing a hand to her chest in mock outrage. How dare you speak to your brother-in-law like that? He left a very important dinner to rush down here and support you. You are being paranoid, Chloe. This is exactly what I mean about your chaotic behavior. You are making wild accusations because you cannot handle the pressure of the real world. I stand up slowly, forcing Connor to step back to maintain his personal space. I keep my voice pitched low, refusing to give them the hysterical reaction they desperately want to use against me. Do not play dumb with me, Mom. I read the fine print. This document hands over complete executive control of Sterling Freight to Jasmine permanently. But that is not even the darkest part of your little plan, is it? I turn my focus entirely to my sister. Jasmine refuses to meet my gaze, looking desperately toward the exit signs at the end of the corridor. I step closer to her, closing the distance until she is forced to back up against the sterile white wall of the waiting area. She shrinks away from me, her designer dress suddenly looking like armor that is entirely too thin. You came here tonight because you needed my signature right now, I say, locking my eyes onto hers. You needed it before the police arrived to ask questions. You came here because if I die or if I am committed to a psych ward for an accidental overdose, Jasmine gets 100% of the company by default. Jasmine gasps sharply, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle the sound. The carefully constructed facade of the grieving, supportive older sister shatters completely into a million jagged pieces. Her breathing turns erratic, her chest heaving, as she looks at Connor with wide, terrified eyes, silently begging him to fix this mistake. Connor steps between us, his face flushing a deep, angry red, but he has absolutely no counter-argument to offer. He opens his mouth but closes it again, swallowing hard. He knows I caught them red-handed. The realization settles over me, heavy and absolute. The peace offering at the repast was never meant to heal our divided family. The expensive artisanal vodka wrapped in black velvet was a targeted assassination attempt aimed directly at me. And because Malik decided to pour the first glass to take the edge off a long day, my sister just put an innocent man on life support. I look down at the heavy wooden clipboard resting on my knees. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital waiting room reflect off the stark white paper glaring up at me. Connor shifts his weight next to me, his expensive cologne completely failing to mask the sour metallic smell of his nervous sweat. He produces a heavy silver pen from the inside pocket of his tailored jacket and holds it out to me with a tight, encouraging smile. Jasmine stands just behind his shoulder, her arms crossed tight over her chest, her eyes darting frantically between the emergency room doors and the pen in Connor's hand. Brenda hovers nearby, adjusting her silk designer scarf, pretending to look at a hospital brochure while watching me like a hawk circling a wounded animal. They expect me to be a weeping mess. They expect the grieving daughter and the terrified fiancé to blindly sign whatever is put in front of her, just to make the administrative headache go away. That is the standard corporate raider playbook. Catch the target at their absolute weakest moment, when their father is resting in a morgue and their partner is hooked up to life support machines. Exploit the trauma to bypass their natural defenses. Use the guise of family support to strip away everything of value before the victim even realizes what is happening. But they forgot who they are dealing with. I did not build Soul and Spice into an elite catering empire by signing papers blindly. Years of reviewing predatory vendor contracts, auditing complex supply chains, and negotiating commercial leases have trained me to spot a legal trap from a mile away. I do not take the silver pen. I do not shed a single tear. Instead, I pick up the clipboard and hold it up to the light. I ignore the bold, friendly header that reads Temporary Family Proxy Agreement. My eyes drop straight to the dense paragraphs of fine print at the very bottom of the page. The legal jargon is incredibly thick, deliberately designed to confuse the reader, but the malicious intent shines through crystal clear. This is not a temporary proxy to help plan a funeral or manage my father's immediate estate logistics. This is a full, irrevocable relinquishment of my rights as the primary executor of Calvin Sterling's estate. It includes a highly specific, non-reversible clause transferring all voting rights, financial authority, and controlling shares of Sterling Freight directly to my sister Jasmine. I read further, my finger tracing the microscopic text along the margins. My blood runs absolute ice. There is also a comprehensive liability waiver absolving the signees of any responsibility regarding my physical health or financial well-being. Tucked right beneath that is a stipulation granting Connor and Jasmine the power to establish a medical proxy if I am deemed legally incapacitated or a danger to myself. The wording is far too specific and airtight to have been drafted tonight in a rush. This document was prepared days ago by expensive lawyers. They were waiting for the precise moment to strike. If I sign this, I am handing over a national logistics empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars to a man who cannot even keep his real estate developments out of foreclosure, and a sister who views me as nothing more than an obstacle to her inheritance. It is the medical proxy clause that makes the entire sinister puzzle snap into place. I look at the paper, then I look up at Jasmine. I look at her bloodshot eyes and the trembling of her hands. I remember the sheer panic that washed over her face on the video call when she saw Malik on the stretcher instead of me. I think about the synthetic muscle relaxant currently surging through his veins, shutting down his organs one by one. It was not just petty sibling spite. It was a calculated, deliberate hit. If I drank that vodka as intended to mourn my father, I would be the one in a coma right now, or I would be dead on my living room floor. And if I survived but was found with a lethal dose of a restricted veterinary chemical in my system, Connor and Jasmine could easily use this document to have me committed to a psychiatric ward. They would spin a tragic and convincing narrative about a distraught daughter attempting suicide from the overwhelming grief of losing her father. With my signature on this paper and a fabricated mental health crisis, they would have total, uncontested control of the Sterling Empire. I slowly lower the clipboard. The icy calm that settled over me in the back of the ambulance hardens into an unbreakable steel armor. I look Connor dead in the eye. My voice is low, but it slices clean through the sterile hum of the hospital waiting room. You did not come here to comfort me, Connor. He blinks, his fake, sympathetic smile faltering for a fraction of a second before he forces it back into place. Chloe, we are just trying to help. You are in no state to deal with estate lawyers and shipping manifests right now. You need to focus on Malik. Let family carry the burden for you. Just sign the paperwork so we can get to work protecting your father's legacy. I drop the clipboard onto the empty plastic chair next to me. The sharp clack echoes down the quiet hallway, causing a passing triage nurse to turn her head in our direction. You did not come here to help me, I say, maintaining unwavering eye contact. You came here to steal my father's company before his body is even cold. Brenda gasps loudly, pressing a manicured hand to her chest in mock outrage. How dare you speak to your brother-in-law like that? He left a very important dinner to rush down here and support you in your time of need. You are being paranoid, Chloe. This is exactly what I mean about your chaotic behavior. You are making wild accusations because you cannot handle the pressure of the real world. You always push people away when they try to clean up your messes. I stand up slowly, forcing Connor to step back to maintain his personal space. I keep my voice pitched low, refusing to give them the hysterical emotional reaction they desperately want to capture and use against me. Do not play dumb with me, Mom, I say, my tone dangerously level. I read the fine print. This document hands over complete executive control of Sterling Freight to Jasmine permanently. But that is not even the darkest part of your little plan, is it? I turn my focus entirely to my sister. Jasmine refuses to meet my gaze, looking desperately toward the exit signs at the end of the corridor. I step closer to her, closing the distance until she is forced to back up against the sterile white wall of the waiting area. She shrinks away from me, her designer dress suddenly looking like armor that is entirely too thin to protect her. You came here tonight because you needed my signature right now, I say, locking my eyes onto hers. You needed it before the police arrived to ask questions about what happened in my living room. You came here because if I die, or if I am committed to a psych ward for an accidental overdose, Jasmine gets 100% of the company by default. Jasmine gasps sharply, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle the sound. The carefully constructed facade of the grieving, supportive older sister shatters completely into a million jagged pieces right in front of me. Her breathing turns erratic, her chest heaving as she looks at Connor with wide, terrified eyes, silently begging him to fix this massive mistake. Connor steps between us, his face flushing a deep, angry red, but he has absolutely no counter-argument to offer. He opens his mouth to speak, but closes it again, swallowing hard. He knows I caught them red-handed in the middle of a federal crime. The realization settles over me, heavy and absolute. The peace offering at the repast was never meant to heal our divided family. The expensive artisanal vodka wrapped in black velvet was a highly coordinated assassination attempt aimed directly at me. And because Malik decided to pour the first glass to take the edge off a long day, my sister just put an innocent man on life support. The automatic sliding doors of the emergency room close behind me, cutting off the frantic sounds of the hospital. The early morning Atlanta air hits my face sharp and cold. It is barely 5 in the morning, but the sky is already bleeding a pale, bruised purple across the horizon. I walk to my car, my heels echoing on the damp concrete of the parking garage. My body feels entirely weightless, running on pure adrenaline and absolute rage. I just left the man I love hooked up to a ventilator, fighting for his life, because my own sister tried to murder me. There is no time to cry. There is no time to sit by a hospital bed and pray. My father, Calvin Sterling, built an empire from the dirt, and right now the people who poisoned my fiancé are rushing to steal the crown before the sun even fully rises. I start the engine of my car and the low rumble vibrates through the steering wheel into my shaking hands. I pull out of the hospital parking lot and merge onto the empty interstate, heading straight for the downtown financial district. The city is still mostly asleep, but my mind is racing a million miles a minute. My father was a man who believed in sweat equity. He started Sterling Freight with a single leased delivery truck and turned it into a national logistics powerhouse. He taught me the value of hard work, which is why I built my catering company Soul and Spice from scratch instead of coasting on his wealth. Jasmine took the opposite route. She married Connor, a white real estate developer who wore custom suits to hide the fact that he was constantly drowning in debt. They spent their entire lives treating my father like a personal bank account and treating me like the family embarrassment. As I navigate the curving highways, I grip the steering wheel tighter. They thought I was weak. They thought that because I chose the kitchen over the boardroom, I was stupid. But my father knew better. The text message from his personal attorney burns a hole in my memory. Do not let Jasmine access the estate vault. She does not know about the audit. Meet me at the downtown bank at 8 in the morning. My father had uncovered something so massive that Jasmine and Connor felt they had no choice but to poison me to get me out of the way. I press my foot down on the gas pedal, the engine roaring as I speed toward the city center. I am not just fighting for my father's legacy anymore. I am fighting for Malik. I am fighting for my own life. The towering glass and steel architecture of the downtown bank looms ahead of me, catching the first bright rays of the morning sun. I pull my car into the executive parking garage, swiping my access badge without missing a beat. I check my reflection in the rearview mirror before stepping out. My eyes are red-rimmed from the sheer shock of the night, but my posture is perfectly straight. I smooth down the lapels of my tailored coat, grabbing my designer purse off the passenger seat. The purse contains the toxicology report confirming the synthetic muscle relaxant surging through Malik's veins. It contains the keys to my business and my home. But most importantly, it contains the power to destroy the people who tried to break me. I walk through the heavy revolving doors and step into the vast, pristine lobby of the bank. The floor is made of gleaming white marble, reflecting the massive crystal chandeliers hanging from the vaulted ceiling. The space is quiet, carrying that distinct hushed tone of immense generational wealth. The bank is not open to the general public yet, but executive clients and estate executors have 24-hour access to the private vault sector. My heels click rhythmically against the marble, sounding like a ticking clock as I make my way toward the secure rear elevators. I do not make it to the elevators. Standing directly in front of the frosted glass doors leading to the private vault room is Connor. He is wearing a pristine charcoal gray suit, not a hair out of place, looking entirely too polished for a man who just fled a hospital waiting room after being caught in a murder plot. Jasmine sent him to intercept me. She knew she could not face me herself after I looked her in the eye and told her Malik drank the poison she meant for me. So she sent her husband to do her dirty work. Connor is not alone. He is standing next to the senior bank manager, a tall older man with a silver tie and a clipboard. Connor is leaning in, speaking in low, hushed tones, gesturing sympathetically while shaking his head. He is actively spinning a narrative. I can read his body language from 30 feet away. He is playing the calm, responsible son-in-law, protecting the family assets from the chaotic, unstable daughter. When Connor spots me walking across the lobby, his posture immediately stiffens. He straightens his suit jacket and steps squarely in front of the heavy vault doors, crossing his arms over his chest to physically block my path. The bank manager turns to look at me, his expression a mixture of deep pity and professional discomfort. Chloe, Connor says, his voice echoing slightly in the vast, empty lobby. He uses a tone dripping with false concern, perfectly calibrated for the bank manager to hear. "What are you doing here? You need to go back to the hospital. Malik needs you." I stop a few feet away from them, keeping my breathing slow and measured. "I am here to meet my father's attorney, Connor." I say, my voice perfectly level. "Step aside." Connor shakes his head, looking at the bank manager with a sad, patronizing smile. "I am so sorry about this," he says to the manager. "My sister-in-law has had a terrible night. Her partner suffered a massive overdose just hours after her father's funeral. The grief is making her manic. She is completely unstable." He turns back to me, holding his hands up in a placating gesture. "Chloe, please. You are not thinking clearly. Jasmine and I are handling the estate logistics. We cannot let you access Calvin's accounts while you are in the middle of a mental health crisis. You have no authority here right now." The manipulation is breathtaking. He is using my grief and the crisis they manufactured to paint me as an erratic, hysterical black woman who cannot be trusted with her own father's legacy. He is banking on the inherent biases of the older white bank manager to side with the calm, well-dressed white man in the charcoal suit over the grieving daughter. Two armed security guards step closer to us, drawn by the tension, their hands resting near their duty belts. The bank manager takes a step forward, looking at me with gentle condescension. "Ms. Sterling," he says, his tone soft but firm, "please accept my deepest condolences for your loss. However, under these tragic circumstances, I must agree with your brother-in-law. The estate accounts are currently frozen pending the reading of the will. I cannot allow you into the private vault room today. I must ask you to return home and rest." Connor smirks. It is a tiny, fleeting movement of his lips, but I see it. He thinks he has won. He thinks he has successfully blocked me from reaching the attorney and discovering whatever secret my father hid inside that vault. He expects me to scream or cry or cause a scene that will only prove his point and give the security guards a reason to drag me out of the building. I do not scream. I do not raise my voice a single decibel. I look at the bank manager, watching the pity in his eyes shift into impatience as he prepares to signal the security guards to escort me away. I reach into my designer purse. Connor tenses, bracing himself as if he thinks I am going to pull out the temporary proxy document from the hospital and tear it to shreds. He expects me to pull out estate paperwork or my father's death certificate to argue my case. But I bypass the legal folders entirely. My fingers brush past the thick paper of the toxicology report and find the smooth, cool plastic I'm looking for. I do not pull out a single piece of estate paperwork. The lobby seems to hold its collective breath as my hand emerges from the purse. I can see the security guards shifting their weight, ready to move if I present any kind of threat. Connor is standing tall, blocking the heavy steel doors leading to the truth my father left behind. He thinks the game is over and that my lack of a corporate title means I have no power in this polished world of high finance. He thinks I am just the family disappointment, the girl who chose recipes over boardrooms. He has absolutely no idea what I am holding in my hand, and he has no idea that the very bank he is standing in is about to turn on him completely. The automatic sliding doors of the emergency room close behind me, cutting off the frantic sounds of the hospital. The early morning Atlanta air hits my face sharp and cold. It is barely 5 in the morning, but the sky is already bleeding a pale, bruised purple across the horizon. I walk to my car, my heels echoing on the damp concrete of the parking garage. My body feels entirely weightless, running on pure adrenaline and absolute rage. I just left the man I love hooked up to a ventilator, fighting for his life, because my own sister tried to murder me. There is no time to cry. There is no time to sit by a hospital bed and pray. My father, Calvin Sterling, built an empire from the dirt, and right now the people who poisoned my fiancé are rushing to steal the crown before the sun even fully rises. I start the engine of my car, and the low rumble vibrates through the steering wheel into my shaking hands. I pull out of the hospital parking lot and merge onto the empty interstate, heading straight for the downtown financial district. The city is still mostly asleep, but my mind is racing 1,000,000 miles a minute. My father was a man who believed in sweat equity. He started Sterling Freight with a single leased delivery truck and turned it into a national logistics powerhouse. He taught me the value of hard work, which is why I built my catering company Soul and Spice from scratch instead of coasting on his wealth. Jasmine took the opposite route. She married Connor, a white real estate developer who wore custom suits to hide the fact that he was constantly drowning in debt. They spent their entire lives treating my father like a personal bank account and treating me like the family embarrassment. As I navigate the curving highways, I grip the steering wheel tighter. They thought I was weak. They thought that because I chose the kitchen over the boardroom, I was stupid. But my father knew better. The text message from his personal attorney burns a hole in my memory. Do not let Jasmine access the estate vault. She does not know about the audit. Meet me at the downtown bank at 8 in the morning. My father had uncovered something so massive that Jasmine and Connor felt they had no choice but to poison me to get me out of the way. I press my foot down on the gas pedal, the engine roaring as I speed toward the city center. I am not just fighting for my father's legacy anymore. I am fighting for Malik. I am fighting for my own life. The towering glass and steel architecture of the downtown bank looms ahead of me, catching the first bright rays of the morning sun. I pull my car into the executive parking garage, swiping my access badge without missing a beat. I check my reflection in the rearview mirror before stepping out. My eyes are red-rimmed from the sheer shock of the night, but my posture is perfectly straight. I smooth down the lapels of my tailored coat, grabbing my designer purse off the passenger seat. The purse contains the toxicology report confirming the synthetic muscle relaxant surging through Malik's veins. It contains the keys to my business and my home, but most importantly, it contains the power to destroy the people who tried to break me. I walk through the heavy revolving doors and step into the vast, pristine lobby of the bank. The floor is made of gleaming white marble, reflecting the massive crystal chandeliers hanging from the vaulted ceiling. The space is quiet, carrying that distinct hushed tone of immense generational wealth. The bank is not open to the general public yet, but executive clients and estate executors have 24-hour access to the private vault sector. My heels click rhythmically against the marble, sounding like a ticking clock as I make my way toward the secure rear elevators. I do not make it to the elevators. Standing directly in front of the frosted glass doors leading to the private vault room is Connor. He is wearing a pristine charcoal gray suit, not a hair out of place, looking entirely too polished for a man who just fled a hospital waiting room after being caught in a murder plot. Jasmine sent him to intercept me. She knew she could not face me herself after I looked her in the eye and told her Malik drank the poison she meant for me. So she sent her husband to do her dirty work. Connor is not alone. He is standing next to the senior bank manager, a tall, older man with a silver tie and a clipboard. Connor is leaning in, speaking in low, hushed tones, gesturing sympathetically while shaking his head. He is actively spinning a narrative. I can read his body language from 30 feet away. He is playing the calm, responsible son-in-law protecting the family assets from the chaotic, unstable daughter. When Connor spots me walking across the lobby, his posture immediately stiffens. He straightens his suit jacket and steps squarely in front of the heavy vault doors, crossing his arms over his chest to physically block my path. The bank manager turns to look at me, his expression a mixture of deep pity and professional discomfort. Chloe Connor says, his voice echoing slightly in the vast empty lobby. He uses a tone dripping with false concern, perfectly calibrated for the bank manager to hear. "What are you doing here? You need to go back to the hospital. Malik needs you." I stop a few feet away from them, keeping my breathing slow and measured. "I am here to meet my father's attorney, Connor." I say, my voice perfectly level. "Step aside." Connor shakes his head, looking at the bank manager with a sad, patronizing smile. "I am so sorry about this," he says to the manager. "My sister-in-law has had a terrible night. Her partner suffered a massive overdose just hours after her father's funeral. The grief is making her manic. She is completely unstable." He turns back to me, holding his hands up in a placating gesture. "Chloe, please. You are not thinking clearly. Jasmine and I are handling the estate logistics. We cannot let you access Calvin's accounts while you are in the middle of a mental health crisis. You have no authority here right now." The manipulation is breathtaking. He is using my grief and the crisis they manufactured to paint me as an erratic, hysterical black woman who cannot be trusted with her own father's legacy. He is banking on the inherent biases of the older white bank manager to side with the calm, well-dressed white man in the charcoal suit over the grieving daughter. Two armed security guards step closer to us, drawn by the tension, their hands resting near their duty belts. The bank manager takes a step forward, looking at me with gentle condescension. "Ms. Sterling," he says, his tone soft but firm, "please accept my deepest condolences for your loss. However, under these tragic circumstances, I must agree with your brother-in-law. The estate accounts are currently frozen pending the reading of the will. I cannot allow you into the private vault room today. I must ask you to return home and rest." Connor smirks. It is a tiny fleeting movement of his lips, but I see it. He thinks he has won. He thinks he has successfully blocked me from reaching the attorney and discovering whatever secret my father hid inside that vault. He expects me to scream or cry or cause a scene that will only prove his point and give the security guards a reason to drag me out of the building. I do not scream. I do not raise my voice a single decibel. I look at the bank manager, watching the pity in his eyes shift into impatience as he prepares to signal the security guards to escort me away. I reach into my designer purse. Connor tenses, bracing himself as if he thinks I'm going to pull out the temporary proxy document from the hospital and tear it to shreds. He expects me to pull out estate paperwork or my father's death certificate to argue my case, but I bypass the legal folders entirely. My fingers brush past the thick paper of the toxicology report and find the smooth, cool plastic I'm looking for. I do not pull out a single piece of estate paperwork. The lobby seems to hold its collective breath as my hand emerges from the purse. I can see the security guards shifting their weight, ready to move if I present any kind of threat. Connor is standing tall, blocking the heavy steel doors leading to the truth my father left behind. He thinks the game is over, and that my lack of a corporate title means I have no power in this polished world of high finance. He thinks I am just the family disappointment, the girl who chose recipes over boardrooms. He has absolutely no idea what I am holding in my hand, and he has no idea that the very bank he is standing in is about to turn on him completely. I do not raise my voice, and I do not argue with the bank manager. I simply bypass Connor entirely, stepping around his polished leather shoes as if he is nothing more than a minor crack in the marble floor. I walk directly to the manager's massive mahogany desk. My movements are deliberate and unhurried. I reach into the side pocket of my purse and my fingers close around the cold, heavy metal of my corporate bank card. I pull it out and drop it onto the polished wood of the desk. The solid metal card lands with a sharp, heavy thud that cuts through the silence of the massive lobby. It is not a standard debit card. It is a solid black Premier Executive corporate card. It is the kind of card issued exclusively to commercial clients who maintain 8-figure balances and handle massive daily operating capital. Across the sleek, matte black surface, the bank's crest is embossed in silver, right above my name, Chloe Sterling, and the name of my company, Soul and Spice. The bank manager looks down at the desk. His eyes track from the silver crest to my name and then slowly back up to my face. The transformation is instantaneous and almost comical to witness. The patronizing pity completely vanishes from his expression. The gentle condescension melts away, replaced by a sudden rigid panic. His posture snaps to attention, his shoulders squaring as he realizes he has just spent the last 5 minutes treating one of the bank's highest-tier commercial clients like a hysterical trespasser. Connor lets out a loud scoff from his position by the vault doors. He rolls his eyes, taking a step toward the desk. "What is that?" Connor asks, his voice dripping with absolute disdain. "Did you bring a credit card to try and bribe your way into a frozen estate account? Chloe, you are embarrassing yourself. Put your little catering card away before they call the police. You do not have the clearance to be back here." The manager does not look at Connor. He is staring at me, his face pale. I keep my eyes locked on the manager, my voice perfectly calm and pitched for the entire lobby to hear. "My name is Chloe Sterling," I say smoothly. "I am the sole owner and executive chef of Soul and Spice. We are the exclusive culinary vendor for this specific financial institution. We catered your regional executive board meeting last Tuesday. We handled the 500-plate charity gala for your private wealth management division last month. Your regional director, Richard Thompson, has my personal cell phone number on speed dial because I am the only chef in Atlanta he trusts to handle his high-net-worth clients." Connor laughs, a harsh, ugly sound that echoes off the vaulted ceilings. "This is pathetic," he sneers, stepping closer to me, trying to use his physical size to intimidate me. "She runs a kitchen," he tells the manager, waving his hand dismissively in my direction. "She chops vegetables for a living. She does not belong in the private wealth sector. Tell security to escort her out before I have to call my wife and tell her that her sister is having a full mental breakdown in public." I do not even glance at Connor. I keep my attention fixed entirely on the bank manager, who is now sweating under the collar of his crisp white shirt. "I believe you can verify my credentials in your system," I tell the manager, gesturing to his computer terminal. "You will find that I am not just an approved vendor, but a premier account holder with full unrestricted 24-hour access to the secure vault facilities. You will also find that my father, Calvin Sterling, listed me as the primary executor on his personal accounts, and that those specific vault permissions do not require a death certificate or a probate court order to access. They require my fingerprint and this card." The manager swallows hard, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. He reaches out with a slightly trembling hand and picks up my black card. He slides it into the secure reader attached to his keyboard and types rapidly. The screen, angled slightly away from Connor, lights up with a bright green verification banner. The manager stands up so quickly his heavy leather chair rolls backward and bumps into the wall. "Miss Sterling," he says, his voice tight with profound apology. "I am so incredibly sorry for the misunderstanding. We were given completely false information regarding your status and your mental well-being this morning." Please accept my deepest apologies on behalf of the entire branch. You absolutely have unrestricted access to the private vault area." Connor stops laughing. His face contorts with sudden confusion, his blue eyes darting between me and the manager. "Wait a minute," Connor says, his voice rising in panic. "What are you doing? You cannot let her back there. Jasmine said the accounts are frozen. Jasmine is the oldest daughter. Jasmine is the one in charge of the estate." The manager finally looks at Connor, and the professional courtesy is completely gone from his eyes. "Sir," the manager says coldly, "Ms. Sterling is a premier executive client and an authorized vault key holder. You, however, are not listed on any of these accounts. You do not have clearance to be in this restricted area." "This is impossible!" Connor shouts, his carefully constructed facade of the calm, responsible businessman crumbling into dust. He points an angry finger at me, his face flushing a deep, furious red. "She is lying. She is just a cook. Jasmine and I are taking over Sterling Freight. We are the ones who handle the money. You cannot let her open Calvin's vault." Connor makes a sudden, aggressive move, stepping away from the glass doors and lunging toward the desk, as if he intends to physically snatch my black card from the manager's hands. He thinks his white male privilege and his expensive suit give him the right to dictate the rules in a room where he has absolutely no actual capital. He expects the institution to side with him because he looks the part of a corporate leader, while I look like a grieving black woman. He fundamentally misunderstands how power works in this building. Capital rules all, and right now I hold the keys to the kingdom. I do not flinch as Connor lunges. I do not even blink. The bank manager does not hesitate. He raises his hand and snaps his fingers, pointing directly at Connor. "Security." The manager barks, his voice echoing sharply across the marble floor. "Escort this gentleman out of the building immediately. If he resists, call the Atlanta police and press charges for trespassing and attempting to assault a premier client." The two armed security guards who had been hovering nearby, waiting to see if I was a threat, instantly spring into action. They cross the lobby in seconds, grabbing Connor by both arms. "Get your hands off me," Connor screams, his voice cracking with desperation as the guards yank his arms behind his back. His pristine charcoal suit jacket bunches and wrinkles up around his shoulders. He struggles wildly, kicking his expensive leather shoes against the marble floor, trying to break free. "You cannot do this. Jasmine is going to own this company. I will sue this bank. I will ruin all of you." "Chloe, tell them to let me go." I stand perfectly still, my hands resting calmly on the mahogany desk, and watch as my sister's husband is physically dragged backward across the lobby. His face is purple with rage and humiliation. He is screaming threats about police and lawyers and corporate takeovers, but his words are entirely empty. He has no power here. He never did. He was just a parasite feeding off my father's hard work, and now he is being thrown out with the rest of the trash. I watch him get dragged through the heavy revolving doors and shoved out onto the cold morning sidewalk. One of the security guards stands on the inside of the glass, pointing a stern finger at Connor, warning him not to step back inside. Connor stumbles on the pavement, looking thoroughly pathetic, before pulling out his phone, presumably to call Jasmine, in a complete panic. The heavy silence returns to the vast bank lobby, broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioning. The bank manager turns back to me, pulling a pristine white handkerchief from his pocket to wipe a bead of sweat from his forehead. He hands my black metal card back to me with a slight respectful bow. "Again, Miss Sterling." "I cannot apologize enough for the disruption," he says, his voice shaking slightly. "We pride ourselves on security and discretion. Your father was one of our most respected clients, and we value your business tremendously." I take the card and slide it smoothly back into my purse, snapping the gold clasp shut. "Apology accepted," I say, keeping my tone gracious but firm. "Now if you would please show me to the vault. My father's attorney should be waiting for me inside." "Right this way, Ms. Sterling," the manager says, stepping out from behind his desk and extending his hand toward the frosted glass doors. I walk past the spot where Connor had been standing just moments ago. I press my thumb against the biometric scanner next to the heavy steel doors. The machine beeps a pleasant soft green, and the thick vault doors hiss as they unseal and slide open. I step into the secure corridor, leaving the lobby and the chaos behind. I have successfully bypassed my sister's first line of defense. Now it is time to find out exactly what secret my father left buried in the dark that was dangerous enough to make my own family try to kill me. I step into the private viewing room deep inside the bank vault. The heavy steel door seals shut behind me, cutting off the faint sounds of the outside lobby and plunging the space into absolute silence. The room is windowless, illuminated by bright overhead lights that reflect off the polished aluminum table in the center. Sitting at that table is my father's personal attorney, Mr. Caldwell. He is a sharp, meticulous older black man who has managed my father Calvin Sterling's legal and financial affairs for nearly 3 decades. When he sees me walk through the door, a profound wave of relief washes over his face. He lets out a breath he seems to have been holding all morning and quickly stands up, unlatching his thick leather briefcase. "You made it, Chloe," he says, his voice tight with urgency as he pulls out a massive stack of legal folders. "When I saw Connor in the lobby, I feared the worst. Your father knew they were going to make a move today." I sit down across from him, placing my purse on the table. "My father knew," I ask, keeping my tone perfectly level despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Knew what exactly?" Caldwell does not waste time with pleasantries or condolences. He opens the first folder and turns it toward me. "My father did not just drop dead of a random heart attack last week. He died carrying the crushing weight of a massive familial betrayal." Caldwell explains that a week before his passing, my father ordered a silent forensic audit of Sterling Freight's internal financial ledgers. He had noticed irregularities in the quarterly expense reports and wanted to investigate before alerting the board of directors. What the auditors found was absolutely staggering. Jasmine and her husband Connor had systematically embezzled $4.5 million from the family company over the past 14 months. I stare at the bank statements Caldwell lays out in front of me, tracing the long columns of unauthorized wire transfers. Connor's luxury real estate developments, the ones he constantly bragged about at our family dinners while wearing his custom-tailored suits, were a complete and total sham. His business was failing fast, and he was drowning in massive fraudulent debt. To keep up appearances and avoid a federal indictment for his unpaid loans, they used my father's life work as their personal, unrestricted piggy bank. Jasmine had used her senior access codes to route company funds directly into Connor's offshore shell corporations, hiding the theft under the guise of fake vendor payments. "Your father was heartbroken," Caldwell says quietly, tapping the paper. "But you know Calvin. He was a businessman first and a father second. He knew if he confronted them without a bulletproof legal shield, they would scorch the earth. They would destroy the company's reputation to cover their tracks and likely drag him down into a federal investigation with them. So he secretly restructured his entire estate before confronting them." Mr. Caldwell slides a thick stack of watermarked documents across the aluminum table. He explains that my father quietly and legally transferred 100% of the controlling shares of Sterling Freight into a newly formed private holding company. He named that holding company after my mother, the woman who passed away when I was just a little girl, long before Brenda ever entered the picture. And he made me Chloe Sterling, the sole unrestricted owner of it. I stare at the papers, my hands shaking slightly as the magnitude of what I am looking at sinks in. My father, a man who rarely showed emotion and who watched silently as Brenda and Jasmine treated me like the family scapegoat, had actually seen everything. He knew Jasmine was a parasite. He knew I was the only one with the grit and the integrity to protect the empire he built from the dirt. He trusted me. Why did not he just tell me, I ask, looking up at Caldwell? Why keep it a secret until now? Caldwell sighs, running a hand over his graying hair. He explains the contingency clause. My father wanted to ensure the transition was absolutely seamless, but he also knew Jasmine's sheer ruthlessness. He knew that if she found out she had been cut out of the company, she would tie the estate up in probate court for decades, so he instituted a dead man's switch. He put a strict 48-hour ticking clock on the final transfer. The clause states that upon my father's death, I have exactly 48 hours to physically sign the acceptance documents in the presence of his attorney and claim the holding company. If I fail to sign, if I am deemed legally incapacitated, or if I am deceased, the holding company automatically dissolves. The shares would then immediately revert to the default line of succession, which means they would go directly to Jasmine. The reality of what Caldwell is saying hits me with the force of a speeding freight train. The puzzle pieces snap together with terrifying absolute clarity. The artisanal vodka wrapped in black velvet was never just a cruel joke or a petty sibling rivalry. It was a desperate ticking clock. Jasmine and Connor knew the silent audit was eventually going to come to light. When my father died suddenly, they realized they had a very narrow 48-hour window to secure the company before the $4.5 million embezzlement was officially discovered by the board. They needed me dead or locked in a psychiatric ward tonight. They poisoned that bottle, hoping I would drink it in my grief so they could walk into the hospital, feign deep concern, claim I had a mental breakdown and take the company by default. They were perfectly willing to murder their own sister to cover up their theft and maintain their lavish lifestyle. I reach across the table and pick up the heavy silver pen Mr. Caldwell offers me. My hand is completely steady now. The grief that threatened to drown me all night has evaporated entirely, burned away by a cold, calculating, and absolute rage. I think about Malik lying in that intensive care unit bed kept alive by machines and breathing tubes because he took the hit meant for me. I think about Brenda glaring at me through the phone screen, more annoyed by the disruption to her evening than the fact that my fiancé was dying on my living room floor. I press the tip of the pen to the paper. I sign my name on the dotted line. I flip to the next page and sign again. I sign every single page, claiming my father's empire, claiming my power, and locking my sister out of the family legacy forever. The scratch of the pen on the thick paper sounds like a match being struck in a dark room. The exact second Mr. Caldwell stamps the final page with his heavy notary seal, making the transfer completely irrevocable, my phone chimes loudly in the quiet vault. It is an industry news alert I set up years ago for Sterling Freight, back when I still cared about keeping up with my father's business milestones. I pull my phone from my purse and look at the glowing screen. Jasmine has just issued a massive press release to every major business publication and local news outlet in Atlanta. She has scheduled an emergency shareholder dinner and a press conference for this exact evening at the Grand Ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. The headline of the press release reads that she will be officially announcing her ascension to the role of Chief Executive Officer to honor our late father and guide Sterling Freight into a new era of prosperity. She is moving fast, trying to cement her public position and force the board's hand before anyone realizes I am supposed to be the one in charge. She assumes I am currently sitting in a hospital waiting room crying over Malik, completely incapacitated by trauma and entirely out of her way. I stare at the press release, a slow, sharp smile spreading across my face. The Plaza Hotel is one of the most exclusive venues in the city. It is also one of my biggest corporate catering clients. I know the general manager, I know the loading dock schedules, and I know exactly how their kitchen operates. Jasmine wants to put on a show for the city's corporate elite. She wants to wear her expensive dresses and play the role of the grieving but resilient heir taking over the throne. She thinks she has won. She has absolutely no idea that she just invited the Grim Reaper to her coronation. I look up at Mr. Caldwell and hand him the finalized documents. "Keep these secure," I tell him, gathering my purse and standing up from the table. "I have a dinner to cater tonight, and I need to make sure the main course is served ice cold." 14 hours later, the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel is completely unrecognizable. My father would have absolutely hated this display. He was a man who preferred a quiet bourbon on the back porch with his closest friends, laughing over shared memories. Jasmine and Brenda, however, have transformed his repast into a sickening exhibition of extreme wealth and cutthroat corporate ambition. The room is overflowing with white orchids, towering crystal centerpieces, and a live string quartet playing softly in the corner. The guest list reads like a who is who of the Atlanta corporate elite. Every major shareholder of Sterling Freight is here, along with local politicians and a swarm of business reporters holding recording equipment. I am standing in the dimly lit service corridor just behind the heavy velvet curtains that separate the main ballroom from the commercial kitchen. The darkness of the alcove hides me perfectly. I adjust the discreet earpiece hidden beneath my hair, listening to the crisp radio chatter of my catering staff. When I called the general manager of the Plaza Hotel this afternoon, I did not ask for permission to take over the event. I informed him that the billing account for the evening had been frozen due to suspected fraud, and that I would be personally assuming all financial liability for the repast through my company Soul and Spice. The hotel management, eager to avoid a massive unpaid invoice, happily stepped aside. They handed me the keys to the kingdom without Jasmine or Brenda ever being notified. My kitchen staff operates with military precision. I spent the afternoon briefing them not just on the menu, but on the exact layout of the room. They know this is not a normal catering gig. They know they are the silent foot soldiers in a hostile takeover. My people are currently circulating through the massive room, balancing polished silver trays of champagne and intricately prepared hors d'oeuvres, moving like well-trained ghosts among the oblivious guests. Through a narrow gap in the heavy velvet curtains, I watch my mother work the room. Brenda is in her absolute element. She is wearing a custom black silk morning gown that clings to her frame, but it is the jewelry that catches the chandelier light and makes my stomach turn. She is dripping in diamonds. A massive, brilliant cut necklace rests against her collarbone, perfectly matching the heavy teardrop earrings swinging from her lobes. I know exactly how much a set of stones like that costs. I also know exactly whose money paid for it. The $4.5 million stolen from my father's logistics company is literally hanging around her neck. Brenda glides from table to table, touching the arms of powerful men and leaning in close to speak with their wives. She plays the role of the tragic but resilient matriarch with terrifying perfection. I watch her approach a group of older men standing near the towering ice sculpture. I recognize them immediately. They are the 3 senior board members of Sterling Freight, the men who hold the most voting power outside of the Sterling family. One of my servers, a trusted floor captain named David, walks past their circle with a tray of drinks. His radio microphone is keyed open, allowing me to hear every word of their conversation clearly through my earpiece. I hear one of the board members, a man named Richard, express his deep condolences to my mother. He then asks why I am not present to honor my father on such an important night. Brenda lets out a heavy, dramatic sigh. She presses a manicured hand to her diamond necklace, shaking her head with perfectly practiced sorrow. "It is a terrible tragedy, Richard," she says, her voice trembling just enough to be convincing. "We are keeping it quiet to protect her dignity, but Chloe is in no condition to be here tonight. The grief of losing Calvin was simply too much for her fragile state. She suffered a severe relapse. She is currently hospitalized after a terrible overdose with her partner Malik. We are praying for her recovery, but she has always battled these dark, chaotic demons." The board members murmur their sympathies, shaking their heads at the tragic downfall of the youngest daughter. Brenda does not miss a single beat. She seamlessly pivots the conversation, gesturing across the room to where my sister is standing, holding court with a group of investors. "Thank God for Jasmine." Brenda continues, her voice swelling with manufactured pride. "Jasmine has always been the rock of this family. She has the discipline and the corporate vision Calvin always wanted. She is stepping up to take the reins as chief executive officer tonight. It is what Calvin would have wanted. He always knew Jasmine was the true heir." I stand in the shadows, listening to my own mother assassinate my character to the most powerful men in the city. She is painting me as a drug-addicted failure, painting Malik's near-fatal poisoning as a reckless overdose, and using our manufactured tragedy as a stepping stone to elevate the sister who actually put the poison in his glass. My father built Sterling Freight by knowing exactly when to stay quiet and exactly when to strike. He used to tell me that the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest because they have to scream to convince themselves they have power. Looking at my mother and my sister tonight, I see exactly what he meant. They are loud, they are flashy, they are desperately trying to project authority because deep down, they know they are frauds. A younger version of me would have burst through the curtains, crying and screaming about the sheer injustice of it all. I would have demanded they listen to me. I would have begged them to believe my side of the story. But the woman standing in the service corridor tonight does not need to beg for belief. I do not need to defend my reputation against thieves and liars. I run my thumb over the edge of the certified legal documents resting safely inside my leather briefcase. The ink on those papers is completely dry. The transfer is totally irrevocable. I am the sole unrestricted owner of Sterling Freight, and every single person in that ballroom works for me now. Connor is also working the room, sweating slightly in a new tailored suit, trying to look like the confident real estate mogul he pretends to be. He stands near the bar laughing too loudly at a joke made by a financial reporter. He thinks the worst part of his day was being thrown out of the bank lobby this morning. He thinks Jasmine's sudden power grab tonight will fix his massive fraudulent debts and keep him out of federal prison. He has no idea that the bank ledgers proving his embezzlement have already been securely transmitted to my tablet. I watch as Jasmine separates from a group of reporters and begins making her way toward the raised stage at the front of the ballroom. A massive digital projector screen hangs behind the podium, currently displaying a tasteful memorial photo of my father. She signals the audio-visual technician to prepare her microphone. She wants to claim the throne before the board can ask any difficult questions. She wants to make her ascension a public, undeniable fact. Jasmine smooths down the front of her expensive dress and takes a deep breath, preparing her victory speech. She thinks she has won. She thinks I am miles away, broken and weeping beside a hospital bed, stripped of my power and my voice. She believes her carefully constructed world of lies and stolen money is finally secure. She has absolutely no idea that I am standing less than 50 feet away, holding the deed to the entire empire and controlling the very ground she is standing on. The sharp rhythmic tapping of a microphone echoes through the grand ballroom, cutting through the low murmur of the corporate elite. Jasmine stands at the mahogany podium at the front of the room, illuminated by a bright, warm spotlight. She adjusts the microphone stand, her diamond rings catching the glare of the lights. The room slowly falls quiet as the board members, politicians, and local journalists turn their attention toward the stage. From my hidden vantage point, just behind the heavy velvet curtains of the service corridor, I have a perfect, unobstructed view of my sister's performance. Thank you all for being here tonight, Jasmine begins, her voice projecting clearly through the massive speakers. She expertly lowers her tone, infusing it with just the right amount of manufactured sorrow. As you know, our family suffered a devastating loss this week. My father, Calvin Sterling, was not just a pioneer in the logistics industry. He was a pillar of the Atlanta community and the rock of our family. A soft, sympathetic murmur ripples through the crowd. Brenda is sitting at the primary VIP table, right at the edge of the stage, dabbing the corners of her dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. Jasmine takes a deep, steadying breath, playing the role of the reluctant but dutiful heir to absolute perfection. It breaks my heart that my younger sister Chloe cannot be here to share this moment with us. She continues, shaking her head tragically. As my mother mentioned earlier, Chloe is facing a severe medical crisis tonight. We ask for your prayers and your absolute discretion regarding her struggles with addiction. My father spent years trying to help her find her way, but some demons are simply too strong to fight alone. I stand in the shadows, listening to her use my fabricated near-death experience to build her own credibility. She is completely weaponizing the lie, turning my fiancé's fight for his life into a convenient public relations tool to gain the sympathy of the board. But even in our profound grief, Sterling Freight must look to the future. Jasmine says, her voice strengthening, rising with practiced authority. My father built this empire with discipline and clear vision. He knew that in times of crisis, strong leadership is not just preferred, it is absolutely required. That is why tonight I am stepping forward to formally accept the position of Chief Executive Officer. I reach up and press the small radio earpiece hidden beneath my hair. The time for waiting is over. Lock the perimeter, I whisper into my lapel microphone. Across the massive ballroom, I watch my Soul and Spice catering staff move with terrifying synchronization. Two of my servers casually step in front of the side exit doors. The banquet captain discreetly turns the deadbolt on the rear service hallway. We have completely sealed the room. No one is getting out until I am finished with them. I reach up and unbutton the dark, oversized catering coat I have been wearing to blend in with the staff. I let the heavy black fabric slide off my shoulders and drop it onto a nearby prep table. I am not wearing the dark, subdued colors of a grieving widow. I am not wearing the traditional black dress expected of a mourning daughter. I am wearing a flawless, custom-tailored crimson suit. The color is striking bold and entirely unapologetic. It is the exact color of power and retribution. I pair it with towering black stiletto heels that snap against the concrete floor like gunshots. My sous chef Marcus steps out from the commercial kitchen rolling a heavy polished silver serving cart toward me. The cart gleams under the dim corridor lights. Sitting dead center on the top tier of the cart is a massive silver serving cloche resting on a polished tray. There is no food under that silver dome. It holds something far more potent. "Thank you, Marcus," I say, gripping the cool metal handle of the serving cart. "Open the doors." Jasmine is just reaching the crescendo of her fraudulent acceptance speech. "I am ready to carry my father's legacy forward," she projects confidently, gripping the edges of the podium. "I promise every shareholder in this room that under my leadership, Sterling Freight will reach heights my father only dreamed of. We are officially entering a new era." Marcus grabs the brass handles of the massive double oak doors at the back of the grand ballroom. He pulls them open simultaneously with a heavy, resonating thud that momentarily competes with the sound system. The sudden noise at the rear of the room draws the attention of the back tables. A few journalists turn their heads annoyed by the disruption during a major corporate announcement. I step out from the shadows of the corridor and push the silver serving cart directly into the brilliant light of the ballroom. The wheels of the cart glide silently over the thick plush carpet, but the sharp snapping crack of my stiletto heels echoes clearly through the cavernous space. I walk straight down the center aisle, cutting a path directly through the sea of seated guests. The bold crimson of my suit stands out like a blazing fire against the muted gray and black formal wear of the corporate crowd. The reaction ripples through the room in real time, moving from the back rows all the way to the front stage. Heads turn one by one. The polite applause that was beginning to build for Jasmine abruptly dies. Conversations stop mid-sentence. The journalists lower their notepads, their eyes widening in shock. The sea of wealthy investors and board members literally parts before me, leaning back in their chairs as I push the silver cart down the aisle with absolute, unwavering authority. The room falls dead silent. The only sound is the rhythmic, terrifying click of my heels approaching the stage. Jasmine freezes. She is standing at the podium, her mouth hanging slightly open, her hands locked in a death grip on the wooden edges of the stand. The color rapidly drains from her face, leaving her looking like a hollow, terrified ghost. Her eyes are fixed on me, wide and unblinking, unable to comprehend the reality standing right in front of her. She thinks she is hallucinating. She thinks the poison worked and she is looking at a dead woman walking. At the VIP table, Brenda slowly stands up her chair, scraping loudly against the floor. She clutches her diamond necklace, her jaw trembling as she stares at my crimson suit. She looks frantically toward the hotel exit but sees my catering staff firmly blocking the doors. Standing near the front bar, Connor is frozen in place. He had a glass of expensive champagne raised halfway to his lips, ready to toast his wife's stolen victory and celebrate his permanent escape from federal prison. He turns his head and sees me standing perfectly alive, perfectly composed, and radiating an aura of total destruction. Connor's hand goes completely slack. The crystal champagne glass slips through his fingers. It drops through the air and hits the solid marble border of the dance floor. The glass shatters violently into 100 glittering pieces, the sharp crash echoing like a physical blow in the dead silence of the ballroom. I do not stop walking. I do not look at Brenda or Connor. I keep my eyes locked entirely on Jasmine until I reach the very front of the center aisle, directly below the raised stage. I park the silver serving cart right at the edge of the platform and look up at my older sister. She looks like a woman standing on a trap door, waiting for the lever to be pulled. "I promised you a new era, Jasmine," I say, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room without needing a microphone. "I just wanted to personally deliver the main course. The harsh whine of microphone feedback slices through the grand ballroom, freezing every single person in their tracks. I step up to the mahogany podium and pry the microphone straight out of Jasmine's trembling fingers. She does not resist. Her hands are shaking so violently that her diamond rings rattle against the polished wood of the stand. She stares at the massive projector screen behind us, where Malik's toxicology report and the open police investigation file are displayed in glaring high definition for the entire room to see. The corporate elite of Atlanta, the shareholders, the journalists, everyone is staring at the proof of her murderous desperation. But I am not finished. This is only the appetizer. The real main course is the financial destruction of everything she and her husband have built. I pull a small presentation remote from the pocket of my crimson suit. I press the button. The massive screen behind me flickers and shifts away from the hospital documents. A series of highly classified financial records replaces them. The header clearly displays the official Sterling Freight corporate logo. I project my voice loudly and crisply into the microphone, making sure every syllable reaches the very back of the cavernous ballroom. My father, Calvin, did not die of a sudden, unpredictable heart attack. I announce my voice, carrying the undeniable weight of absolute authority. He died carrying the crushing burden of a massive familial betrayal. A week before his passing, he ordered a silent forensic audit of this company's internal financial ledgers. He noticed irregularities in the quarterly expense reports, and he wanted to investigate before alerting the board of directors. I click the remote again, highlighting a specific column on the projected screen. The numbers glow in bright red, impossible to miss. What the auditors found was absolutely staggering. I continue panning my gaze across the horrified faces of the board members sitting at the front tables. Jasmine and her husband Connor have systematically embezzled $4.5 million from Sterling Freight over the past 14 months. A collective gasp sweeps through the ballroom. The flashbulbs of the local business reporters begin firing rapidly, illuminating the stage in blinding bursts of white light. I turn to look at my sister. The golden child, the supposed true heir, is currently backing away from the podium, trembling so hard her knees look ready to buckle underneath her designer gown. "My father did not leave you the company, Jasmine," I say, stepping closer to her, forcing her to retreat until her back hits the massive projection screen. "He caught you robbing it. He knew you were using his life work as your personal piggy bank to cover up the fact that Connor's real estate developments are failing and drowning in fraudulent debt. You used your senior access codes to route company funds directly into Connor's offshore shell corporations, hiding the theft under the guise of fake vendor payments." I press the remote one more time. The screen shifts to display the routing numbers, the dates, and the exact offshore accounts bearing Connor's legal name. There is absolute, undeniable proof displayed 20 feet high for the entire city to witness. "You needed me dead tonight, Jasmine," I say, keeping the microphone close so my voice stays dominant over the rising chaos in the room. "Because my father secretly restructured his estate before he died. He put 100% of the controlling shares of Sterling Freight into a holding company owned entirely by me. He implemented a 48-hour dead man's switch. You knew that if I missed the window to sign the transfer papers, the company would default to you. So you handed me a bottle of vodka laced with a lethal synthetic muscle relaxant, hoping I would drink it and quietly disappear. You put my fiancé in a coma just to secure your stolen money." The ballroom descends into absolute pandemonium. Shareholders are jumping out of their seats, shouting and demanding answers. The senior board members are on their feet, their faces red with fury, as they realize they were minutes away from handing a national logistics empire over to a pair of desperate criminals. Reporters are pushing closer to the stage, shouting questions over the uproar, their recording devices thrust into the air. Down on the floor, Brenda is clutching her chest, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The diamonds around her neck suddenly look like a very heavy, very shiny noose. She realizes the money that funded her lavish lifestyle, the money that paid for the jewels she is currently wearing, was stolen directly from the company her husband built. But it is Connor who reacts with pure animal panic. Connor realizes exactly what is happening. The polished, confident real estate mogul facade has completely melted away, leaving only a terrified, cornered coward. He knows the bank ledgers on that screen are a one-way ticket to a federal penitentiary. He knows the police report regarding the poisoned vodka means he is looking at attempted manslaughter charges at the very least. He looks around wildly, his eyes darting from the stage to the angry crowd of investors closing in around him. He makes a break for it. Connor drops his champagne glass and shoves past a group of elderly board members sprinting toward the side exit of the ballroom. He is moving with pure, panicked desperation, knocking over a tray of drinks and shoving a waiter out of his way in his frantic rush to escape the building before the authorities arrive. He thinks he can slip out into the Atlanta night and disappear before the police secure the building. He does not make it. As Connor reaches the heavy oak double doors at the side exit, he grabs the brass handles and yanks them open, but he does not find an empty escape route. He finds a solid wall of human muscle. My Soul and Spice kitchen staff are standing shoulder to shoulder, filling the entire doorway. My executive sous chef, Jamal, a man who stands 6'4" and played college linebacker, is standing dead center. Behind him are 6 of my most trusted line cooks and dishwashers, all wearing their crisp white chef coats, their arms crossed tight over their chests. I had briefed them on the exact layout of the room this afternoon and told them to lock down the perimeter the moment I stepped onto the stage. Connor slams right into Jamal, bouncing off his chest like a rag doll hitting a brick wall. Jamal does not even flinch. He simply reaches out, grabs Connor by the collar of his expensive dress shirt, and effortlessly shoves him backward into the ballroom. "You are not going anywhere, man," Jamal says, his deep voice carrying over the noise of the crowd. The boss lady has not finished talking yet. Connor stumbles backward, tripping over his own expensive leather shoes and falling hard onto the carpeted floor. He scrambles backward like a crab, his chest heaving as he looks up at the impenetrable wall of my kitchen staff blocking his only escape route. He turns to look at the main entrance at the back of the room, but my banquet captains have already secured those doors as well. He is completely trapped inside the very room he paid for with stolen money. I stand on the stage holding the microphone, looking down at the pathetic man who thought he could outsmart my father and steal my legacy. The entire power dynamic of my family has shifted permanently in the span of 5 minutes. The glittering diamond-encrusted world they built on, lies, theft, and constant belittlement, is collapsing around them in real time. Jasmine is sobbing uncontrollably now, sliding down the front of the projection screen until she hits the stage floor. She is clutching her head, her perfect hair ruined, her designer dress wrinkled. The golden child, the perfect daughter, the sister who spent her entire life making me feel like an ugly, worthless failure, is completely broken in front of the entire city. I look out over the chaotic ballroom, feeling a deep, profound sense of clarity. I am not the chaotic mess they claimed I was. I am not the ungrateful dropout who chops onions for a living. I am the sole owner of Sterling Freight, and I am the one holding the match that just burned their corrupt empire to the ground. The silence in the grand ballroom shatters completely. It breaks into a million jagged pieces of shouting accusations and the relentless, blinding flash of camera lenses. Connor scrambles backward on the carpeted floor, his expensive leather shoes slipping as he tries to put distance between himself and the wall of my kitchen staff. He manages to haul himself up, grabbing the edge of a guest table to steady his shaking frame. He looks around the room with wild, bloodshot eyes. He sees the senior board members glaring at him with absolute disgust. He sees the journalists holding their phones up, live streaming his exact location to the entire city. Connor realizes there is no side door he can slip through. There is no public relations spin that can erase the bank routing numbers projected 20 feet high on the wall behind me. So he does exactly what desperate cowards do when they are cornered. He points a shaking finger directly at his wife. "It was her!" Connor screams, his voice cracking in panic. "I did not transfer anything. Jasmine had the senior executive access codes. She is the one who authorized the wire transfers. I had no idea the money was coming from Sterling Freight. She told me it was an early advance on her inheritance." Jasmine's head snaps up from where she is crumpled against the base of the projection screen. The sheer shock of her husband throwing her directly under the bus momentarily overrides her panic. For her entire life, Jasmine has been protected, shielded by our mother, excused by our father, and elevated above me. She has never faced a single consequence for her actions. Now the man she stole $4.5 million to impress is offering her up to the federal authorities on a silver platter. A guttural scream rips out of Jasmine's throat. She scrambles to her feet, her designer morning gown tearing at the hem as she steps on the fabric. Her flawless makeup is completely destroyed, running in dark streaks down her face. She lunges toward the podium, gripping the wooden edges so hard her knuckles turn white. She leans into the microphone, her voice echoing through the ballroom in a frantic, high-pitched wail. "You lying, pathetic fraud," Jasmine shrieks, pointing right back at Connor. "You forced me to do it. You begged me. You said those private lenders were going to seize the house and break your legs if you did not pay them back. You told me your real estate developments were going to collapse and ruin our reputation. I only transferred the funds to save your worthless life. You told me you would pay it back before the quarterly audit." The ballroom watches in stunned horror as the perfect high society marriage violently implodes on stage. Investors who just 10 minutes ago were offering Jasmine their deepest sympathies are now recording her full confession on their smartphones. I step back from the podium, giving my sister the entire stage. I do not need to say a single word. They are burying themselves deeper than I ever could. Connor's face turns a dark mottled purple. He realizes Jasmine just confessed to the wire fraud on a hot microphone in front of the local press, but he also realizes something far more dangerous. The financial embezzlement is a federal white-collar crime. But the toxicology report currently glowing on the left side of the projector screen is a violent felony. He knows he can survive a financial fraud charge, but he absolutely cannot survive being an accessory to an attempted assassination. He has to separate himself from the poisoned vodka immediately. Connor pushes away from the guest table, taking a step toward the stage, his hands raised in a frantic, placating gesture to the crowd. "Listen to me, Connor," yells his voice raw and desperate. "The money is one thing, but I had absolutely nothing to do with the hospital. I had nothing to do with the poison. That was all her." Jasmine freezes. Her tear-streaked face whips around to stare at her husband. Connor continues shouting to the room, throwing his hands, pointing violently at Jasmine. She bought the synthetic muscle relaxant online from some shady offshore pharmacy. She was tracking the delivery packages for weeks. She wrapped that bottle in black velvet herself. She told me she was going to give it to Chloe at the repast to make peace so Chloe would let her guard down and drink it alone. Jasmine wanted Chloe out of the way before the 48-hour deadline so we could take the company by default. I just wanted to cover my debts. I never agreed to kill anyone. She is a psychotic murderer. The collective gasp from the ballroom is deafening. Several women cover their mouths in shock. The senior board member, Richard, literally drops his phone onto the table. "You spineless coward," Jasmine screams, her voice completely unhinged now. "You were right there with me in the hospital waiting room. You were the one holding the clipboard with the medical proxy. You were going to have her committed to a psych ward the second she stopped breathing. We planned the whole timeline together." They are shouting over each other now, their voices blending into a chaotic symphony of mutual destruction. They are detailing dates, times, and exact premeditated steps of their conspiracy to the eager ears of the Atlanta press corps. Every single denial, every frantic accusation just twists the legal knife deeper into their own backs. They are providing the district attorney with a perfectly wrapped bow of recorded confessions. I stand perfectly still, my hands resting calmly in the pockets of my crimson suit, watching the empire of lies crumble into absolute ash. Down on the main floor near the edge of the VIP tables, Brenda is standing completely paralyzed. My mother is watching her golden child, her perfect eldest daughter, confess to federal theft and premeditated attempted manslaughter on a hot microphone. She is watching the wealthy, handsome son-in-law she constantly praised turn out to be a broke, fraudulent coward who is actively selling his wife to the authorities to save his own skin. But more importantly, Brenda is doing the mental math. She touches the heavy diamond necklace resting against her collarbone. Her fingers trace the cold stones as the reality of the situation crashes down on her. The $4.5 million is gone, evaporated into Connor's black hole of debt. Jasmine is going to federal prison. Connor is going to federal prison. The massive suburban estate, the luxury cars, the country club memberships, all of it is going to be seized by the authorities the second the indictments come down. Brenda's entire socialite identity has just been vaporized. She is suddenly a broke widow wearing stolen jewelry, standing in a room full of people who will never answer her phone calls again. The facade is entirely dead. I watch her eyes dart frantically around the room, searching for an escape route, searching for a lifeline. She looks at the angry board members. She looks at the flashing cameras. Then her gaze travels up the steps of the stage and locks directly onto me. She looks at the daughter she threw away. She looks at the woman she mocked for choosing a kitchen over a corporate office. She looks at the sole unrestricted owner of a multi-million-dollar logistics holding company. I can see the gears turning in her head. I can see the sheer opportunistic desperation taking over. Brenda realizes that the only person in this room who holds any actual power, any actual wealth, is the very person she just tried to destroy. She adjusts her posture, smoothing down her black silk morning gown. She prepares to make one final pathetic play to save herself. Brenda smooths down her black silk morning gown. She completely ignores the pathetic sobbing of her eldest daughter crumpled on the stage floor. She steps carefully around the podium, her eyes locked entirely on me. I watch the desperate calculation working behind her eyes. She is a woman who has spent her entire life trading on status, riding the coattails of my father's success, and then hitching her wagon to Jasmine's fraudulent rise. Now that the wagon is on fire, she is looking for a new ride. She reaches the center of the stage and opens her arms. She forces a trembling, tearful smile onto her face, playing the role of the horrified, innocent bystander to absolute perfection. "Chloe, baby," she cries out, her voice loud enough for the board members in the front row to hear. "I had no idea. I swear to you, I did not know what they were doing. Your sister lied to me. Connor lied to me. I thought the money was legitimate. You have to believe me. You have to protect the family. You are the chief executive officer now. You have the power to fix this and protect our name." She lunges forward, expecting me to catch her, expecting me to fold into her embrace the way a daughter naturally would. She expects the trauma of the night to make me pliable. She thinks that because I am the child she always pushed away, I will be so desperate for her validation that I will use my newly acquired power to shield her from the fallout. She wants me to use my father's resources to pay off the authorities and sweep this massive criminal conspiracy under the rug just so she can keep her country club memberships. I do not reach out. I do not soften my stance. I step back smoothly, deliberately, letting her grasp at empty air. Brenda stumbles forward, her hands grasping nothing but the empty space where I stood a second ago. Her high heels wobble, and she barely catches her balance before she falls. She looks up at me, genuine shock, replacing her manufactured sorrow. "You knew exactly who she was, Mom," I say, my voice ringing clear and sharp through the silent ballroom. "Do not stand there and insult my intelligence by playing the victim. You knew Connor's business was a joke. You knew he did not have the capital to buy those diamonds hanging around your neck. You never asked questions because you just liked the lifestyle her theft bought you. You happily turned a blind eye while they robbed my father blind as long as your luxury cars were fueled and your social status was maintained." "Chloe, please." Brenda begs, her voice dropping to a frantic whisper intended only for me. "You cannot do this. If the company does not cover this up, I will lose everything. The house, the cars, the accounts. They will take it all. I am your mother. You have to protect the family." "There is no family left to protect," I tell her, looking down at the woman who made my childhood a living nightmare. "You destroyed this family the moment you decided my worth was tied to a corporate title. You sat in that hospital waiting room tonight and tried to help them force me into a psychiatric hold, while the man I love was dying on a ventilator. You watched Jasmine hand me a bottle of poison and you smiled. You are not my mother. You are just a parasite looking for a new host, and my doors are permanently closed." Down on the floor, Jasmine hears our mother begging for my protection. The golden child lifts her tear-streaked face, staring in absolute horror as she realizes Brenda is actively trying to throw her under the bus to save her own skin. Mom. Jasmine chokes out, her voice hoarse from screaming. Mom, help me. Tell them it was Connor. Help me. Brenda does not even look at her favorite daughter. She turns her back completely on Jasmine, staring only at me, her eyes wide with mounting panic as she realizes I am entirely immune to her manipulation. The unbreakable alliance between the toxic mother and the golden child shatters right in front of my eyes. Brenda is willing to let Jasmine rot in a federal cell if it means keeping her diamond earrings. It is the most pathetic display of cowardice I have ever witnessed. You are nothing to me, I tell Brenda, keeping my voice perfectly level. You are going to leave this hotel tonight with nothing but the clothes on your back. You are going to move into a tiny, rundown apartment, and you are going to learn exactly what it feels like to live in the real world without my father's money shielding you from your own incompetence. Brenda's face contorts with a sudden, vicious anger. The polite pleading drops away instantly. You ungrateful little brat, she hisses, her true colors finally bleeding through the pristine socialite facade. You think you have won. You think you can just walk in here and take everything. You are nothing but a cook. You do not have the stomach to send your own blood to prison. You will never get away with this. I smile. It is a slow, cold smile that makes Brenda take a physical step backward. I already have, I say softly. Right on cue, a sound pierces the heavy silence of the ballroom. It starts as a distant wail echoing through the damp Atlanta night. Within seconds, the sound multiplies, growing louder and more urgent. The distinct piercing shriek of police sirens bleeds through the thick glass windows of the Plaza Hotel. It is not just one squad car. It sounds like an entire precinct is descending on the building. The flashing red and blue lights begin to reflect through the high-arched windows, casting frantic colored shadows across the towering white orchids and the crystal centerpieces. The corporate shareholders murmur in shock, twisting in their seats to look toward the entrance. Connor lets out a sound that is half sob, half scream. He tries to shove past Jamal again, fighting with the panicked strength of a trapped animal. Jamal simply grabs Connor by the back of his expensive belt and shoves him face first onto the carpet, pinning him to the floor with one massive hand. You stay right there, man, Jamal growls, looking down at him. The wail of the sirens grows deafeningly loud right outside the hotel doors. I hear the squeal of tires on the pavement and the heavy slamming of car doors. Brenda begins to tremble violently. She grabs her diamond necklace, her breathing turning into short, panicked gasps. She looks at me, her eyes wide with sheer, unadulterated terror. What did you do, Chloe? She whispers. What did you do? I did what Dad taught me to do. I reply, raising the microphone to my lips one last time. I secured my leverage. I did not just drive straight to this hotel tonight. My first stop was the downtown police precinct. I handed the lead detective Malik's hospital toxicology report, the secure bank ledgers proving the wire fraud, and the sworn affidavit from my father's attorney. The authorities have been surrounding this building for the past 20 minutes, waiting for my signal. The heavy oak ballroom doors at the main entrance burst open with a resounding crash. A team of uniformed Atlanta police officers and plainclothes detectives swarm into the grand ballroom. Their radios crackle loudly, cutting through the elegant string quartet music that died away minutes ago. The lead detective, a tall, sharp-eyed black man, holding a thick file folder, walks straight down the center aisle. He does not pause to look at the wealthy investors or the flashing cameras of the local press. His eyes are locked directly on the stage. The handcuffs hooked to his belt gleam brightly under the massive crystal chandeliers. The officers quickly fan out, securing every exit and moving directly toward the stage. Two officers haul a weeping, thrashing Connor up from the floor, pinning his arms behind his back. The lead detective walks right up the stage steps, bypassing Brenda entirely. He stands over Jasmine, who is curled into a pathetic ball on the floor of the stage. Jasmine Sterling, he says, his voice booming with absolute authority. You are under arrest for grand larceny, corporate embezzlement, and the attempted murder of Chloe Sterling. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The satisfying metallic click of the handcuffs closing tightly around Jasmine's wrists echoes through the microphone still resting on the podium. It is the most beautiful sound I have ever heard. Jasmine struggles as the lead detective hauls her up from the wooden floor of the stage. Her knees completely give out, refusing to support her weight. She is dead weight, a pathetic, crumpled mess of designer silk and shattered arrogance. She looks up at me, her perfectly applied makeup completely ruined by her tears, leaving dark, hollow tracks down her cheeks. "Chloe," she gasps, her voice stripped of all that arrogant, commanding authority she wielded just 20 minutes ago. "Chloe, please. I am your sister. Do not let them do this to me." I look down at her from my position at the podium. I do not feel a single ounce of pity. "You stopped being my sister the moment you poured a lethal chemical into a glass meant for me," I say, my voice steady and echoing through the quiet ballroom. "Take her away, detective." The officers pull Jasmine forward, dragging her toward the stairs. Down on the main floor, Jamal, my massive executive sous chef, hauls Connor up by the collar of his custom-tailored shirt and hands him directly over to two uniformed Atlanta police officers. Connor is weeping openly now. A grown man, a supposed real estate mogul, sobbing and blubbering loudly about how he was manipulated, how he just wanted to save his business from the private lenders. The officers spin him around unceremoniously and lock his wrists tightly behind his back, ignoring his frantic, desperate bargaining. The walk down the center aisle is a beautiful, poetic reversal. Just moments ago, I walked down this very aisle in my crimson suit, pushing a silver cart to deliver their absolute destruction. Now Jasmine and Connor are being frog-marched down the exact same path, flanked by armed police officers. The local business reporters who were invited here to document a triumphant corporate succession are having an absolute field day. They are practically climbing over the expensive floral arrangements to get clear, unobstructed shots of the golden child being paraded out in complete disgrace. The flashbulbs explode in rapid succession, capturing every humiliating second of their downfall. Jasmine tries to hide her face behind her cuffed hands, but it is entirely useless. Tomorrow morning, her tear-streaked, terrified face will be plastered on the front page of every financial publication in the state, right next to the bank ledgers proving her theft. I turn my attention back to the floor of the ballroom. Brenda is still kneeling on the plush carpet. The matriarch who prided herself on flawless appearances, who built her entire identity on country club memberships and high society galas, is completely and utterly shattered. The massive diamond necklace she bought with my father's stolen money hangs heavily around her neck, a glittering monument to her own unchecked greed. She watches her favorite daughter being dragged out by the police, but she does not move a single muscle to help her. She does not scream for a lawyer. She just sits there trembling, entirely consumed by the realization of her own social and financial ruin. Richard, the senior board member she was just trying to charm mere minutes ago, looks down at her with an expression of profound, unfiltered disgust. "You make me absolutely sick, Brenda," he says, his voice carrying an icy finality. "Calvin was a good man. You and those two parasites bled him dry while he was fighting to keep this company afloat. Do not ever show your face in this city again." He turns his back on her without another word and walks toward the stage, signaling the other corporate shareholders to follow him. Brenda slowly looks up at me. Her eyes are hollow and dark. The illusion she maintained for 32 years is dead and buried. She knows there is no manipulation left to try. She knows I hold the keys to the empire, and I will never let her step foot inside the castle. I do not offer her a hand. I do not offer her a single drop of sympathy. I look right through her, turning to my banquet captain and signaling him to start clearing the tables. My catering staff moves efficiently, stepping around Brenda as if she is nothing more than a discarded piece of trash left on the ballroom floor. She is effectively a ghost in a world that no longer acknowledges her existence. The lead detective approaches the edge of the stage. He holds up the thick leather briefcase containing the secure bank ledgers and the official toxicology report. "We have everything we need, Miss Sterling," he says respectfully. "We will have federal investigators looking into the offshore bank locations by tomorrow morning. They will not be seeing the outside of a cell for a very long time." I nod, thanking him for his swift response. The remaining police officers finish clearing the room of the frantic press, establishing a strict perimeter to secure the physical evidence. The chaos begins to settle, replaced by the quiet, steady hum of my staff packing up the silver serving carts and clearing the champagne glasses. The corporate rot has been excised. The parasites have been violently removed from the host. My father's legacy is finally safe, locked securely behind my name and my absolute authority. I stand tall on the stage, the heavy, crushing weight of the last 24 hours beginning to shift off my shoulders. I won. I burned their fraudulent empire to the ground and reclaimed exactly what was mine. But as the adrenaline slowly starts to drain from my bloodstream, the cold, sharp reality of the night rushes back in. The flashing red and blue police lights reflecting through the ballroom windows no longer look like a symbol of victory. They look exactly like the lights of the ambulance parked outside my house hours ago. I look down at my hands. They are completely steady, but my heart suddenly aches with a terrifying, desperate urgency. Jasmine and Connor are sitting in the back of a police cruiser heading to booking. Brenda is financially and socially eradicated. The company is mine. The immediate threat is entirely neutralized. But none of this money, none of this power, and none of this sweet, flawless revenge will mean absolutely anything if I have to sit on this throne alone. The ultimate victory does not happen in this ballroom. It happens in an intensive care unit across the city. I grab my dark coat from the prep table, my crimson suit snapping under the dim corridor lights, as I walk briskly toward the service exit. I need to get back to the hospital right now. I need Malik to wake up. The adrenaline that carried me through the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel evaporates the second I step back into the sterile white corridors of the intensive care unit. For 14 days, the rhythmic mechanical hiss of the ventilator has been the only sound tethering me to sanity. 2 full weeks have passed since I stood on that stage in my crimson suit and watched my sister get dragged out in handcuffs. I have not slept in my own bed since the night of my father's repast. I have lived entirely in this small, square hospital room, sitting in a stiff vinyl chair watching the steady green lines on the cardiac monitor. During the day, I run an empire from a digital tablet resting on my lap. The board of directors at Sterling Freight fell into line immediately after the arrests. They saw what happened to the people who tried to cross me, and they quickly decided that loyalty was their best survival strategy. I manage national shipping manifests and coordinate international supply chains with one hand while holding Malik's cold fingers with the other. My sous chef Jamal handles the daily operations at Soul and Spice, stepping up as my proxy, while I refuse to leave this hospital. I have successfully taken absolute control of my father's legacy, but all the corporate power in the world feels completely useless when the man you love is trapped in a medically induced coma. Dr. Evans told me the synthetic muscle relaxant caused severe trauma to Malik's nervous system. They had to keep him under to let the chemicals slowly wash out of his bloodstream without triggering another series of fatal seizures. Every morning they lower the sedation levels just a fraction, hoping his brain will wake up and take over. Every evening I watch his chest rise and fall, praying that the poison did not cause permanent damage. I sit here running a billion-dollar logistics firm, but I would trade every single truck and warehouse just to hear him say my name. It happens on a rainy Tuesday morning. The sky outside the hospital window is gray and heavy, washing the room in soft, muted light. I am reading a quarterly financial report when the pitch of the heart monitor changes. It is a subtle shift in the rhythm, a slight quickening of the steady electronic beep. I drop my tablet onto the chair and stand up, leaning over the metal bedrail. Malik's fingers twitch against my palm. It is a tiny movement, just a weak flutter of his knuckles, but it sends a massive shockwave of pure electricity straight through my chest. I press the call button, frantically summoning the nurses, but my eyes never leave his face. Malik lets out a low, gravelly groan. The sound is rough and dry, tearing at his throat, but it is the most beautiful noise I have ever heard. His eyelids flutter, fighting against the heavy weight of the sedation drugs. The harsh hospital lights make him wince, and he turns his head slightly on the thin pillow. I lean down close to his ear, keeping my voice soft and steady, assuring him that he is safe, that he is in the hospital, and that the worst is over. Dr. Evans rushes into the room, followed by two intensive care nurses. They immediately begin checking his pupil dilation and shining small pen lights into his eyes. Malik blinks rapidly, trying to focus his vision on the chaotic room. He looks at the doctors, then he looks at the machines humming next to his bed. Finally, his gaze finds me. His dark eyes are clouded with heavy confusion and exhaustion, but the moment he sees my face, the panic drains out of him. He slowly turns his hand over on the hospital blanket and wraps his fingers around mine. His grip is incredibly weak, but he squeezes my hand. He recognizes me. The doctors step back, nodding with profound relief. His brain activity is fully responsive. He has pulled through the absolute darkest part of the woods. It takes another full day before they remove the breathing tubes and clear his throat, allowing him to speak. When we are finally alone in the quiet hum of the recovery room, Malik looks at me with an exhausted, searching expression. His voice is a harsh whisper as he asks me what happened. He remembers coming home from the repast. He remembers pouring a single glass of vodka to take the edge off the grief. He remembers the sudden, terrifying paralysis gripping his lungs, but everything after that is a complete black void. He asks if it was a bad batch of liquor. He asks if he had an allergic reaction. I sit on the edge of his bed, holding his warm hand in both of mine. I do not sugarcoat the truth. I tell him exactly what my sister tried to do. I tell him about the synthetic muscle relaxant, the forged medical proxy, and the 48-hour ticking clock on my father's holding company. I watch the shock wash over his face as he realizes the sheer calculated malice of the family I grew up with. He realizes he took the bullet that was aimed squarely at my back. I pick up my tablet from the bedside table. I tell him he does not need to worry about Jasmine or Connor ever again. I unlock the screen and pull up the front page of the Atlanta Business Chronicle. I gently turn the screen toward him so he can see the bold black headlines. The page displays the official police mugshots of Jasmine and Connor. They look absolutely terrified, stripped of their designer clothes and their unearned arrogance, wearing standard-issue orange jumpsuits. I read the details to him, keeping my voice steady and triumphant. Jasmine and Connor were both denied bail by a federal judge who deemed them an extreme flight risk. They are currently sitting in maximum security holding cells facing a mountain of federal indictments. The district attorney has formally charged them with grand larceny, corporate embezzlement, wire fraud, and the attempted manslaughter of Malik. With the bank ledgers and the toxicology report entered into evidence, they are looking at decades in federal prison. There is no plea deal on the table. They are going to lose the rest of their natural lives behind bars. I also show him the society pages. Brenda has been completely socially eradicated. When the embezzlement went public, the private lenders immediately seized Jasmine and Connor's suburban estate and froze all of Brenda's associated bank accounts. She was forced to pawn the diamond jewelry she wore to the hotel just to afford the deposit on a rundown studio apartment on the outskirts of the city. Her wealthy friends have entirely abandoned her, refusing to associate with a woman whose family is plastered across the criminal justice news cycle. Malik stares at the glowing screen of the tablet, absorbing the absolute destruction of the people who tried to murder us. He looks at the mugshots, then he looks up at me. He sees the dark circles under my eyes, but he also sees the unbreakable steel underneath. A slow, weak smile spreads across his tired face. He rests his head back against the crisp white hospital pillows, letting out a long, shaky breath. He turns his head and kisses the palm of my hand. "We survived," he whispers, his voice thick with profound gratitude. I lean down and kiss his forehead, knowing the war is finally over and our real life is just beginning. 6 months have passed since that chaotic night at the Plaza Hotel. The crisp autumn air of Atlanta settles over the sprawling grounds of the new private estate Malik and I purchased just outside the city limits. The leaves on the massive oak trees lining our driveway have turned brilliant shades of amber and gold. Inside my home office, the digital dashboard on my wall monitor glows with real-time shipping routes, spanning from coast to coast. I did exactly what I promised my father I would do. I integrated the national logistics network of Sterling Freight with the elite culinary operations of Soul and Spice. We are no longer just a high-end catering company or a regional shipping firm. We are a unified national food distribution powerhouse. The same massive freight trucks my father used to haul commercial dry goods are now transporting my premium ingredients to luxury restaurants and executive galas across the country. I sit at my solid mahogany desk reviewing the final quarterly profit margins. The numbers are absolutely astronomical. The board of directors who once looked at me with pity and dismissed me as a simple cook now answer to my direct command. I have modernized the entire fleet, expanded our commercial contracts, and purged every single corrupt executive who was complicit in Connor and Jasmine's embezzlement schemes. The corporate rot has been entirely burned away, leaving a foundation of pure solid steel. While my empire expands daily, my mother's world has shrunk to the size of a dirty shoebox. Brenda is completely cut off from the Sterling family wealth. The federal authorities seized everything attached to the embezzlement conspiracy, including the massive suburban mansion Brenda lived in and the luxury vehicles she drove. Stripped of her stolen diamonds and her bloated bank accounts, her high society friends abandoned her overnight. She was forced to move into a tiny rundown studio apartment on the far industrial side of town. The building has peeling paint, a constantly malfunctioning elevator, and walls so thin she can hear the highway traffic rattling the cheap glass windows all night long. There are no grand galas for Brenda to attend today. There is no stage for her to play the tragic affluent matriarch. She is drowning in massive personal debt from her complicity in the fraud, dodging aggressive daily calls from collection agencies while eating cheap microwave dinners alone. She thought she could sacrifice me to keep her diamond crown and maintain her shallow lifestyle. Now, she has nothing but the cold, bitter reality of her own profound consequences. Jasmine and Connor are currently sitting in federal holding facilities waiting for their sentencing hearings. They are facing minimums of 20 years each. I do not think about them at all. I lock my tablet screen and walk out of the office, heading down the wide, curved staircase toward the main dining room. The house smells absolutely incredible. It is a rich, warm blend of roasted turkey candied yams, slow-cooked collard greens, and fresh-baked sweet potato pie. My kitchen staff from Soul and Spice insisted on taking the holiday off to spend with their own families, so I cooked this entire Thanksgiving feast myself. I walk into the massive formal dining room, and my heart swells with an overwhelming sense of peace. The long oak dining table is beautifully decorated with lush autumn centerpieces and glowing taper candles. But the best part of the room is the people sitting around it. There are no fake corporate smiles here. There are no scheming relatives waiting to stab me in the back or judge my career choices. The seats are filled with our chosen family, the loyal friends, trusted mentors, and dedicated colleagues who actually supported us when the world was falling apart. At the head of the table sits Malik. He looks completely healthy and vibrant, his broad shoulders relaxed, his dark eyes shining with pure joy as he laughs at a joke someone just told from across the table. The physical therapy was grueling, but he fought his way back with incredible strength. The poison is completely flushed out of his system, and the nightmare is permanently over. He looks up and catches me walking into the room. His smile brightens the entire space, and he reaches his hand out toward me. I step up to the head of the table, standing right next to Malik and taking his warm hand in mine. The lively conversations naturally quiet down as I reach for my glass. The crystal catches the warm yellow candlelight, reflecting it around the room. I do not pour wine today, and there is absolutely no vodka anywhere in this house. My glass is filled to the brim with crisp, sparkling apple cider. Malik stands up, wrapping his strong arms securely around my waist, and pulls me close. I look out at the beautiful faces of the people who genuinely love and respect us. I raise my glass high into the air. I offer a heartfelt toast to resilience, to surviving the absolute worst betrayals and coming out stronger on the other side. I offer a quiet, respectful toast to my father, who knew exactly who I was and trusted me enough to protect his life work. The guests raise their glasses in unison, and the crystal clinks together, creating a bright, ringing sound of absolute victory. I take a slow sip of the sweet, sparkling cider, savoring the taste of the life I built from the ground up. I am no longer the overlooked black sheep of the Sterling family. I am the undisputed matriarch of my own life, and the sole architect of my own flawless, sweet revenge. The greatest lesson I learned that night is that true family is defined by loyalty, not just a bloodline. You can never shrink yourself to make toxic relatives comfortable. They underestimated me because I chose a different path, but building my own success in the shadows provided the exact armor I needed when they finally attacked. Sometimes the most profound healing comes from walking away and letting the ashes of a corrupt family fertilize your new beginning. Have you ever had to cut ties with toxic relatives to protect your peace? Share your story in the comments below, and please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about surviving betrayal and claiming your ultimate power.